Hi friends, Mr. Lavasser again with you. We're continuing our unit on Anne Frank, and over the next few lessons we'll be reading actual sections of her diary, not the play, but her actual diary. And we're going to analyze the passages for field, which is the ideas and the events and the people and the circumstances. And we're also going to be analyzing it for tenor. And tenor is the emotions or the feeling that you get, or the power dynamics between people, the social relationships that you read in a text. So we'll be analyzing for those two things for each passage. And then once we've done all the passages, we'll have a list of notes about the field and the tenor, the ideas and the emotions that make up the entry to her journal. And then we can summarize that based on our notes. And that's what we'll do. At the end, we'll write a summary about the journal entry. Now remember, friends, you can start and stop this video whenever you need to or whenever you want to as you go through the assignment. So as I cover one section, you can watch it and then stop the video and then start up again once you've completed that section. Or if you choose to, you can just watch the video right through. All right, let's get started. Here we go. And you should have some form of this assignment. Maybe you've gotten your assignment given to you on Nearpod, or maybe you have a PDF that's been emailed to you, or a Word document like the one I'm using. Okay, but somehow you should be able to finish this. If you have a PDF, your best bet is to print it and then use the paper to write on. And in Nearpod, you should be able to write over any of the sections and follow along. At the very top is a link to the Savvis Pearson's assignment or lesson that we're basing this on from your school assignment. Our content objectives, our content objectives are read, annotate, and analyze selections from a war diary in historical context. In our language acquisition topics, summarization, we want to summarize. And we want to summarize based on annotation, taking notes, of field, the ideas, and tenor, the feelings or emotions or interpersonal relationships. And if you've clicked on this link here, you're watching this video. Section 1, Section 1. Learning objectives. I can discuss, analyze, and annotate passages from Anne Frank's diary for vocabulary and main idea. I can summarize text for meaning based on annotation of field and tenor. Main idea, section 2, main ideas. 1, every clause and passage in a text has field, ideas, actions, and experiences, and tenor, social relationships, feelings, and power dynamics. So we have field and we have tenor. Those are two important ways that we make meaning in English. The ideas, the actions, the experience, field. The social relationships, the feeling, the emotions that we're communicating with our words, or the power dynamics between people, that's called tenor. So 1, every clause in a passage in a text has field, ideas, actions, and experiences, and tenor, social relationships, feelings, and power dynamics. By making note of these key ideas or field in a passage, and by recording the feeling or the tenor of a section of writing, you can make an outline for a summary of the whole text. And that's what we'll be doing in this assignment. So section 3 deals with our essential question, which is how do people record or how do people remember the past? And so as part of the introduction to this, we're going to list 6 ways that people remember the past. Okay, so let me read the instructions. Section 3, instructions. In your group, discuss and list 6 ways that humans record information so that people in the future can remember the past, such as writing a diary. How do we record and communicate information? How do we record any information? And that's what I want you to think about as you're coming up with these 6 ways. So for example, how am I recording right now? How do you, when you watch a YouTube video, how do people gather the content to transfer that knowledge? Your history book, any of these ways. Another one that I want you to think about is mathematical ways, because we record and we communicate information mathematically too, especially change over time. And I want you to think about how that's done as part of your list. So in your discussion, you want to talk about how people record with technology, how people record with pen and paper, how people record through artistic means, or how people record through scientific means, through measurement, or through mathematical terms. I want you to kind of discuss all of that and come up with 6 excellent ways that people remember the past or use information to remember the past with. Section 4, let me read the instructions. 4, instructions. In your group, read each section aloud and discuss the meaning. Highlight using functional language analysis. Follow the key on the right. And over here is your key. Over here is your key, and I'm going to take the marks out. There we go. Those are little marks that you can add on with this button, and I like them when I'm writing, but they kind of confuse people when we're looking at it. So in your groups, read aloud the section, discuss the meaning, highlight using functional language analysis, and here is our language analysis key. After reading each section, write 1 sentence to annotate the passage based on what you have highlighted in pink. That's the field. So you want to write down the information about the participants, the who, the what, the things, the ideas, the experiences, the events. You want to write down the participants. You want to talk about, notice the verbs, the actions, the processes. You want to think about where and when things are happening. Those are the circumstances. Okay, so, and the descriptions. You also want to make sure that you note the words that Anne is using to describe nouns or participants. So that's the field, and that will be done in light pink. And then any vocabulary words that you see, any words that you want to learn or new words, we're going to highlight in yellow. And so we're going to read the passage, and then we're going to write a sentence about the field, what we've highlighted in pink, and then we're going to write a few words or a clause or a phrase, or even a sentence if you want to, about the tenor, about the emotions, about the feelings, about the personal dynamics that are going on in the section. So after reading each section, write 1 sentence to annotate the passage based on what you've highlighted in pink, and also record the feelings or tenor. So this was recorded by Anne Frank, Saturday, June 20th, 1942. And this is passage A, and we'll come back to passage A in a later section. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience, and since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook grandly referred to as the diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it possibly will not make a bit of difference. It possibly will not make a bit of difference. So there's the first passage. And I also want to point out to you that on the right-hand side here, I've put some words that I think you might want to learn. And so I'm asking you to translate these words if you speak another language other than English at home. So if you speak Spanish, I want you to translate these words into Spanish. Or if you speak Vietnamese at home, I want you to translate these into Vietnamese. So whatever language you speak at home, If you speak English at home, what I want you to do is find a synonym for all of these words, okay? And that can be written right in there. And if you can't find space to write them in there, what you can do is you can hit return here and start a new line and record them there if you're using Word. And if you're using PDF, you can just write them on a separate piece of paper, or you can just write them right on these lines. In Nearpod, there should be a place for you to make this list. Okay. So, and I'm going to take away this line since I'm going to type right on here. What was some of the interesting things in here? And let me get out my highlighter. So I'm going to start with yellow. More patience. Now, patience sometimes means people in a hospital, but in this case, patience means to be able to wait calmly and without anxiety, without everything wanting to be rushed. So you just wait patiently. I thought of the saying in one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed, sad, down, blue. I was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored, listless. Listless is also one of those words. We have depressed here, we have listless. Listless means no energy. No, there's nothing encouraging you to do more. Wondering whether to stay in or go out. Finally, I stared where I was, brooding. Oh, poor me. Oh. Yes, paper does have more patience. But since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook, grandly referred to as the diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it possibly will not make a bit of difference. So we have 4 words that we might want to look up, and I think I've done all 4 of those. Brooding, listless, depressed. What one did I not do? Patient, wait calmly. Okay. And now I want to find the key things that are giving me the information in this. So I'm going to change to pink. I'm going to change to pink, if I can. I'm going to change to pink. There we go. Paper has more patience than people. I think that I'm going to make this a little bit thinner. I think that might be the line that we're really talking about here. And what does that mean? What does that saying mean? I thought of this saying in one of those days when I was feeling a little bit depressed. So we can think about a little depressed, feeling a little depressed, and that certainly is going to help us with the tenor. When I was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether I would go stay in or go out, I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience. Since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-back notebook, grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it possibly won't make a difference. So, then there's no right or wrong of this. Those are the things that kind of jumped out at me. And I am going to erase this line so that I can type in, and I'm going to put a little color on it so I can see clearly what I've written versus the other parts of the paper. So the field, Anne, that's the person, thinks people are less patient than paper. The paper doesn't rush her to tell them things. The paper doesn't force her in any way to do things. She can write at her own pace. She can feel her own feelings and get them out, because she has all the time in the world with a piece of paper, whereas in a conversation, maybe you're rushing. That's just my guess of what that might mean. Unless I should ever find a real friend, so there's a loneliness. Oops, maybe Anne longs for a friend. Oh my goodness. Thank you. And longs for a friend. Yeah, and I think we can say that she's feeling lonely and depressed. And I think that everyone can understand those feelings. And for the tenor, and I'm going to change that to maybe a dark blue so that when I go back, I can see clearly what is field and what is tenor. And I'm going to say that she's sad and that she's lonely. Depressed. And I'm going to say that there's an element of where she's feeling misunderstood because paper is kinder to her. Patience, the patience of a piece of paper that she's writing on is more calm and more waiting to hear her thoughts and her feelings than most people are. I'm trying to think of a way to say that. Well, we'll leave it there. So we've got those, and so you should be able to do these other sections. And I suggest you make different colors like this. I'm going to say isolated is the word I'm going to use. She's all by herself, which is part of being lonely. So, and then you can do these other sections and write a little bit about the field, the ideas, the actions, the circumstances, and a little bit about the tenor, the emotions. So you see how I just made like a list of emotions, and I could have written that into like a very short sentence or just a clause or phrase. And whereas in this section, I wrote sentences. In the field section, I wrote complete sentences. And so we can write in, maybe we can write in a synonym for depressed. Maybe we can write in a synonym for depressed, and I'm going to make that purple so you can see it. And I'm just going to say sad is my synonym for depressed. And I'm going to look up that on in Google Translate for a Spanish word. And so I see on Google Translate that deprimenda is the Spanish word for depressed for a girl. And so since it is Anne speaking here, I use the female or feminine form of that verb. All right, so please do the rest of these. Please do the rest of these. A short sentence or two about the field and a short list of ideas or feelings or short phrase about the tenor. And make sure that you translate all of these words or find a synonym. Let's go down here. Field, in this case, I want you to use a specific form of field, and that is the field of knowledge. The field of knowledge, which is the ideas, the events, the people, the processes, the circumstances, the experiences, all of those things that happen as part of the field. So I'm going to change that color to purple, like I did with SAD. And tenor. Tenor is the feel. Oops. Or the interpersonal aspects or emotions of a clause. How do the words make you feel? What emotion do they carry? How do they impress upon you some sort of relationship between people in the story? Do they show that one is powerful and one is weak? Do they show that they're equals? Do they, what's the tenor? And last one, summary. And I think that you all should know what a summary is. And a summary is like a review. Add up key points. So in a summary comes from the same root word as sum, which in English means to add up, S-U-M, means to add things up. And so a summary, you add up all the important parts. All right? And that should take you to section 5. And in section 5, I'm asking you to, let me read the instructions. Instructions. In your group, reread and discuss passage A. In passage A, Anne Frank says, paper has more patience than people. Based on your discussion, write an interpretive explanation of this clause. So I've already kind of given you my basic understanding of it, or a thumbnail sketch of that. You can go in deeper in your conversation with your friends, and that should allow you to make an excellent few sentences about interpreting. So this is your opinion. This is what you think it means, an interpretive explanation of this clause. And then section 6 is really what we're looking to do here. And what we want to do is we want to take all of these collections of bits of field and tenor. We want to take all these little notes that we've made about field and tenor and then write a complete summary of all the information that's above here. So for example, I'm going to black that out and take out the lines and type. Above is sections of Anne Frank's diary, entry for Saturday, June 20th, 1942, where you have highlighted and annotated for field the ideas, actions, and experiences, and for tenor, the social relationships, the feelings, and the power dynamics. Use those annotations to write a summary of those passages, their meaning and feeling. So let's start. We could say that Anne Frank's entry to her diary on we need an apostrophe after the K. Anne Frank's diary on, let's get the date again, June 20th. So we know that Anne is lonely. She wants a friend. And who can be that friend? Who can be that friend? And it turns out to be Kitty. And I leave that the rest for you to do. I would like to give you a couple of ideas. For instance, the word furthermore. Oops. You can see that I don't type well. Words like furthermore, I want to add something. So another you could do is in addition to. You see, because all of these make good words for a summary. Because you're adding things together, a sum, you're adding things together in a summary. So as you go through your list of bits of information about field and tenor, what you want to do is you want to connect those ideas that you've put together above. And so a good way to connect them is use words that mean and. And another word that you can use is and. Furthermore, in addition to, not only. So there are many of these linking words that you can use to join together your ideas to make one full summary. And that's this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you all in class. Thank you so much for your attention. All right, everybody.